So what is your self-concept? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about your self-concept? I want to say a lot of times we don't always sit down and think about our self-concepts, because I know I didn't always, even by being a therapist, it's like, how do I think about myself? Because sometimes some of us make the error or have this belief. That's pretty much what self-concept is what you believe in yourself, how you see yourself, how you think about yourself. In that a lot of times you're so much of thinking about others that you don't even think about yourself, especially as women, and especially as women as entrepreneurs, and especially as women, for those of you who have partners and those of you who have children. And again, especially for little girls, we've always, either we got the message somewhere or have been directly taught, oh, and especially if you're the oldest, look after such and such, and do this, do that. And we already have leadership abilities, but then sometimes you may leave yourself behind. And I know I've done that. Of course, not intentional, but it's done. And it gets so embedded in us until sometimes it's really hard to let go. Because even when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I have good self-concept. But when I started going deep and doing the work, woo, And for me, what I have found, and this may be you too, especially for those of you who are highly ambitious entrepreneurs and leaders, in that it's not real. Part of it is your accomplishments and of being, but sometimes we don't always sit down and think about ourselves. Because again, I didn't think of myself in that way. And even when I sat down, I'm like, no, I'm good. And two things came up. Oh, I don't even think about myself, and that's not how the universe works. And when I say the universe within you, meaning your being, it needs some attention. and the other thing is that it shows up. Like, even if you like, oh, my self-concept is this, my self-concept is that, I have a good self-concept of myself, you may think that too, but you're going to be surprised. But it shows up in your behaviors, and that's how I saw mine. Like, ooh, oh, okay, I see now. It shows up in your habits, in your behaviors, in how you show up. That's how it shows up. That's how your self-concept shows up, because it is so ingrained and embedded in you. It can be anywhere. I mean, even when you think about people pleasing, in that for the most part, you're thinking that you're doing it for the other person, and how the other person may see you. That's another self-concept way of being as well. But the thing is, when it comes to people pleasing, part of that is you. Part of that is, I'm going to say, it's a rush of emotions that come up where you don't want to be uncomfortable. It's that feeling of feeling uncomfortable that a lot of individuals haven't dealt with. Because for me, I can see people pleasing in people like that, but I never realized that I had characteristics of people pleasing. I mean, I have some boundaries, but I want to say sometimes when it's dead in your face, oh my gosh. But the thing is that when it comes to your self-concept, and you having a business and you're being an entrepreneur, you're being a leader, it's not just how you lead. I'm going to say that's going to be on the stage. When you're on stage, meaning you're in your leadership role, that's not the only way of how it shows up, because of how you see yourself, how you believe in yourself, of how you view yourself, and even what you think that other people are thinking of you. It really does show up in your leadership. It really does. One example, I can remember when I was younger in my career, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to, be an intern supervisor, to be able to counsel not counsel, but be a guidance and mentor and all of that. And a part of me, and this is something I'm still working on. I'm much better at it, but I never liked conflict. I never liked drama. I never liked those things. And so if you do not like conflict or drama, go ahead, turn in your key, because you're going to be in for a ride in being a leader and an entrepreneur, because it is all of that. It's not just about being agreeable and being able to compromise and to collaborate. It's also to be able to make sure that things are in alignment, and when contracts are breached and policies and procedures aren't followed, things need to be addressed. And that's what happened to me, because one time I had an intern, and I would just say something had needed to be addressed directly. I thought that I was addressing it, but when I really think about it, especially once I started doing my deep work, I said, oh, that's what it was. I did not do it directly per se, and so the issue in and of itself really wasn't addressed. And so by being in that, really came down to me not wanting, it's that uncomfortable feeling of needing to address something. So in being in leadership, you can't be going around the corner, going through the back door, and hoping that someone will get a message. Because what ends up happening, the same expectation that you have of others, or even the same thing that you may say of someone else, you end up doing the exact same thing. Because what? We all want leaders. We all want individuals who are direct and honest with us. And even though sometimes some people can't take it, but that's what it takes to be a leader. And then, I'm not going to say a side note, a part of that, you as a leader being able to navigate through that and not take it personal, for you to be able to stand up for your principles and your values that's personal to you, and your principles and values that is a part of your business. Because if you're not able to address things, then you're not able to address things in and of itself. And so that is how your self-concept shows up. It shows up in your behaviors. It shows up in your habits. It shows up in your actions. Yes, it does. So even if you do not think, you're like, oh, I don't have a self-concept problem. Because the other thing is, I'm going to say this, there are many individuals who they can slam it in business, but then sometimes in the personal life may not be so. But one thing that I will say, usually eventually, even if it is years and years later, whatever your self-concept is, and sometimes it can be deeply rooted for some individuals, therapy may be the best thing for you, but I'm one to say, therapy or not, with or without therapy, it is very beneficial to still do your homework, to still go deep within yourself, to still self-study. The self-development, it never stops, y'all. It never stops. And again, I'm a therapist, and I didn't always do it because of the fact it's almost like we believe when things are good that there's no bumps in the road or no forts or no mountains to climb, that everything is okay for the moment. It's okay for the moment. But what we don't always know or understand is that underneath, it's just that those unresolved issues, those traumas that we have forgotten, those unconscious things that's within us that got embedded within us, implanted at a very young age or through an experience that we had, and a part of ourself is just so smart that it blocked it off. But believe me, y'all, I know from experience, when people, places, and things come into your life and they trigger and activate it, and then it comes up. And so it's really best. You're not going to always be able to do it because half the time we don't even know. But one thing that I will say to you, that's the reason of sitting down. That is the reason of sitting down, of sitting in silence, so that you can get to know you. The more that you know yourself, not just as a leader, not just as an entrepreneur, not just as a business owner, but to really know you on an intimate level. You will be able to move the mountains, and then when the forks in the road come and when, the bumps, you're not running scared. Because you know what? Because you can stand up for anything. You can stand up for anything in and of itself. Now I gotta make sure I'm looking at my notes so that I can be on target on here. I want to make sure that I address every single thing. Now, we talked a little bit about how things get embedded, that things are embedded in you that you may not even know, and then you end up embodying those things. They become a part of you. And they become a part of you in different ways. That's just like earlier when I was talking about, I don't like drama, I don't like confrontation, I don't like conflict. That is true, but we need to learn how to play the game so that when those things happen in life, because they're going to happen, it's not just about, can you do this? It's not always about that. It's not about the feeling good. Not saying you have to feel terrible. What is it? It's like, I may be kind. It's like, you don't always have to be nice, but you can be kind. Again, standing your ground. Sometimes some people don't like, standing your ground, because I used to be that way. It's like, ooh, that feels so harsh. No, you're standing up for yourself. Again, it's really about the nervous system, y'all. I'm seriously, I cannot tell you. A lot of this is really about the nervous system. And so you can retrain that. You can rewire your thoughts. You really, really can do that. But because, and when I say it hadn't been addressed, it's not a blame thing. You just didn't know. Because there's some things that have come up for me when I've gone deep within myself, or life pretty much put it in my face. I'm like, I didn't even know I had an issue with this. Has that happened to you all? Because it's going to show up, But if anything, you want to take hold of it so that you will not embody those things that's not going to serve you. As they say, you are letting go people, places, and things that's not serving you. So it can be the people, places, and things that's inside of you that is not going to lead you to your next destination. And we don't want that anymore. And then sometimes, for some individuals, sometimes you can embrace the thing that may not be good for you. Because sometimes some individuals, especially when it comes to the harshness of trauma, in that some individuals really feel like it's a part of their personality. And what I will say is, with intense work with a therapist, with someone who specializes in trauma. But the intense work really from you, because I'm one to believe that therapy is on the outside. And when I say on the outside, meaning outside of therapy, but meaning it's everywhere that we go, for us to be able to embrace that. Because whatever doesn't get addressed, believe me, it will show its ugly face. One example for me is, I grew up without a father, a single parent household. Pretty much I felt like life was good, you know what I'm saying? And I never had, any ill feelings regarding my dad. There were certain aspects in my life, I might have heard from him, I might have initiated. And later on in my life, I would say, I know I was in my early 20s, and I'm like, ooh, okay. I just say I had an interaction with him or experience with him, and I'm like, ooh, I am sure glad that he was not in my life, because, ooh, I would not be who I am today. Because of him, I am who I am. But if I would have had any more contact, But later on, I'm talking about later on in life, I had an experience, and it was with someone I had a friendship with. We really clicked as a friendship. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden, it's like click, clack, click, clack. Like, what in the world is going on here? I have no idea. But what came up for me is like, oh my gosh, I'm pulling my dad's coattail. That's what came up for me. And sometimes that can happen. That can happen with someone that you know, someone that you don't know. And because how many times have you come across somebody, you could have seen someone across the street, across the yard, in the other side of the conference room, and be like, ooh, who is that? I don't do that. I would tell you my vice, not my vice, but something that I continue to work on, but it's gotten better. But how many times have you done that? Or someone who has done that? Pretty much what that is just, it's an energy, and that it reminds you of something. You didn't know that. It's so subconscious that you don't even know. And especially if you have an interaction, if that person says something or does something. And I'm not saying it's not right, because I definitely do believe in duality. Y'all know what duality is, right? Both can be true at the same time. It can be opposing views, opposite actions, but they both can be true at the same time. And that's what I felt like in that click-clack experience that I had, that both things were true at the same time. And in saying that, again, that's when I recognized, oh my gosh, the little girl in me was really yearning for a father. And so you may have someone that comes into your life that's going to really be a click-clack. Sometimes it is the person in and of itself, but when you know that you are healed, for sure is when you can walk away at the first clack. Click, clack, click, clack, walk away. At least not in too many times. Because you are the most important person. You are the most important creation that has ever been made. And you don't want anybody, any person, anything to interfere with that. So that's one of the messages in and of itself. Again, that is a self-concept. You see where that's going? It's like, what is the self-concept of a daughter with the father? And those are things we need to heal. I never knew. Because like I said, I never had any ill feelings about him. And especially once I came, I just say to some knowing, it's like, thank God he was not a part of my life. And what about you? What are some experiences that you've had and you thought was like, oh yeah, I'm good with this. But then later on in life, something activated it, and you're like, I thought I was over this. You know, I thought I was over this. But that is pretty much really the whole purpose of living, so that we can become better people. So that, and I'm going to say this too, I'm not going to say I really needed to have that experience, but I needed something to bring up whatever that was stuck inside me, to bring that up so that it can be resolved regarding my dad. Because again, I didn't even know that I had that inside of me. And it wasn't a hatred, it was more so a yearning. And in saying that, if anything that I know from personal experience by being a therapist, and especially being consciousness, spiritual, is everything is for us. And it's for us to embrace ourselves. And so this lead into pretty much the next thing that I'm going to talk about when it comes to our self-concept. And again, that was just an example. And I'd like to hear from you, like, what experience have you had that you thought you were done with, or you didn't even realize that it interfered with your self-concept, because you thought of your self-concept of being pretty high. And especially for individuals who really didn't have, you know, like a lot of negative experience, even, you know, sometimes there still can be a self-concept issue. And before I get into the next part, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about where some of those come from. I talked about it some, but I just want to make sure I hone on in those. Again, your self-concept can come from the images that you see. They can come from your environment, your community, and your circle. Wherever you are, that is where they come from. Okay? And they could come from the images that you see. So the first images that you see are home. For those of us who are in school, and for those of us, you know, once we get older, once we start working, whoever we're hanging around. So they come from the images that we see and what we hear as well, and how it makes us feel, because pretty much that is where it is. Now I want to hold on to that just for a moment. You heard what I said. It's what you see, it's what you hear, and how it makes you feel. That's how it gets implanted and embedded in us. It's that first impression. Again, that yearning. It's like anything that hits hard, that has a hard contact, that gets embedded in you, even if you don't remember it. Even if you don't remember it. So, for me, what I would say when it came to my dad, it was, again, now I can't tell you when, but I'm pretty sure it was at some point, you know, when I was a little girl, that I felt that not belonging, that I felt that abandonment. Now, I don't remember any of this, but my spirit, my soul, my body does. So what that means is, at some point, it's not for someone else, it's not for the dad, it's not for your mom, it's not for, you know, the ex, you know, that you all have broken up with, or as I say, are not together anymore. It's not for them to be able to repair you. It's not for them to be able to do that. It's going to always come back for us, for you to heal and repair yourself for that. That was a place that I needed to visit that I didn't even know that I did. And if I didn't have that experience, I'm not so sure if I would have known that. Now, one thing that I will say, this is one reason why I am very loud about individuals, man or woman, if you had an absent parent, do the work. Again, because I didn't think I had an issue with it. Like, consciously, I did not have an issue with it. My soul did. My soul was yearning for a father. And until I had that experience that opened that door, it's like, oh, I've got to visit this. You're doing the work. And sometimes that's how things come up. So when you are activated or get triggered, it doesn't always mean that the other person is a bad person. I would say sometimes it depends, because remember I did say that it is about duality sometimes. I stopped it. But anyway, when it comes to that, in that if it hits you hard, even though you don't remember, it would stay there until it gets resolved. So just hold on to that. Again, this is how your self-concepts become to be. And again, there are images, views, and beliefs that you have about yourself. And then even what you think other people think of you. People may not even think about you in such a way. I can remember, I'm going to say this, like when I have certain conversations, when I've had certain conversations with individuals, and of course, I'm going to say the terms are not so good. When I've had conversations with certain individuals and the terms are not so good, and they would say something, and I'm like, wow, is that how they think of me? Like initially, when one person had said something, like at one time, I felt really bad. I felt like it was me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, they think of me of this way. Even though I didn't believe I was that. But, like we always want to be seen in a good light of everyone that we come across. But let me tell you a secret, get rid of that. Just like we may not think highly or like everybody, and we need to be honest with ourselves about that. For whatever reason, we just, again, people, places, and things may not be your cup of tea. That's okay. We're not others' cup of tea either, because again, it could be something that trigger is their own concept. And so, in saying that, when I thought about when I felt that way, and again later on when I had another experience when someone may be thinking of me in a certain way, and I'm like, I ain't taking that. Now one thing I will say, sometimes we do have to look and see, is there any truth with it? And that's a part of self-development, personal development. Especially if the same theme may come up, like different people are saying the same thing. It doesn't matter who it be, We really do need to take heed to that. Sometimes there may be some truth in that. But at the same time, even if there is truth with that, make sure you're doing the work. But do not hold on to what other people are thinking of you. Because a lot of times, because if you really look at other people too, to see what their patterns are, especially when it comes to relationships or friendships, and even when it comes to work relationships, interactions and things, it's like, what is the theme? How do people describe other people, and how do they describe their experience? Because believe me, the way that, especially when it's negative, when people are talking about, let's say, their ex-partner, and it could be, when I say partner, it can be an ex-business partner or an ex, partner, an ex-mate. However they are thinking of that person and how they're describing it, they will probably end up describing you in that way. And when you notice that, that's when you know it's their self-concept, is what they have deep within themselves. And some people, put it like this, once you know that, you look at your own self-concept regarding that, and just know when it's time for you, when something is not a part of your values. Put it like this: you honor your values and you honor your principles, because once you do that, you don't have to worry about anything else. There's no guilt. You're like, nope, this is not a part of my value, this is not a part of my principle. It's not about, because you're not going to be in good light with everybody. The main thing is you be in good light with yourself, and you be in good light with your higher power. That's who you be in good light with. And so, you know how I was talking about your environment pretty much set the stage for that. And when I say your environment, it's kind of like wherever you are at that time. For most of us, it would be family, and then community, meaning school, and then work, and then circles. Circles can be family too, and then any friends that you may have along the way. And so those are how those self-concepts ended up being embedded in us, it ended up being embodied in us, and then we end up embracing it. And then most of the time they're unconscious. And when I say that, I'm talking about embracing the ones that's not good for you, and you don't even know that you're embracing that, because one thing that I have seen by being a therapist is that generally we're not taught how to regulate ourselves, and then most people don't normalize the normal emotions that come up, that uncomfortableness that comes up in your bodies, like, oh man, I'm going to have to talk to such and such about this deal, or when it comes to a family, that this contract isn't right, or somebody reneged on a contract and you may need to address something, that uncomfortableness that comes up. And this is another reason, side note, for a deep breath, so you can settle that, so you can think clear, so that you can, use your discernment and say what needs to be said despite of how you're feeling. Because part of that is your self-concept. If you don't feel like that you're have what it takes, or you may interpret because someone backed out of a deal, it could be different reasons that they backed out, in and of itself. It may have nothing to do with you. Again, it may be you may not be their cup of tea, or it just may not be the right time, in and of itself. So the thing is that with self-concept, you don't have to live with them once you become aware of them. And again, some of them you may not be aware, but if you want to go, 7 layers deep, go ahead and send me a message, and then I can tell you how I can work with you. But in the meantime, I would just say, before you go too many layers, at least at the first layer, what you can do is, there are so many different ways in which you can rewrite and rewire your self-concept, where you become unbothered by other people, where when it comes to the click-clack, and when it, the last clack, you're going to leave it alone. And this is where you embed a self-concept that you want, you rewire. This is one reason of why it's so important to be able to write things down, to be able to look at it, to do a brain dump, to be able to come up with and I say that because that's kind of like one method in which you can, you're like, oh, I don't know how to do personal affirmations. There's nothing wrong with borrowing others' affirmations, and there are some like, oh yeah, this is really good, this is exactly how I want to feel and be. There's nothing wrong with that. You can start off that way, but it's more magic when you create your own, but you embed how you want to be. And that goes by you saying. So you got to repeat it, write it down. And when I say this, I'm saying this to myself as well. I'm reminding myself, because there are some things like, oh yeah, I need to do a little better about that. You embed how you want to be within you by the words that you say, the things that you see. Remember earlier I was talking about seeing the images. So you take an image, take a picture. You take a picture, get a picture off the internet, or whatever that may be, of how you want to see yourself, of how you want to be. If there's a video of someone, it's like, oh yeah, I really want to be like that. You practice it as well. That is how you embed it. But a part of embedding it, y'all, is the words that you say, and not just think, because sometimes some people think. And if anybody is like me, oh my gosh, I'm like this. I can say it in my mind some, but I'm so much better when I at least whisper it, because if not, I'll get off track and my mind would go other places. I know I'm not the only one who does that. But all in all, despite that, it is very beneficial for you to be able to write the words down and to be able to say the words, to say them out loud. So you can say them in front of a mirror, say them in front of camera. You can record yourself and listen. But still, the more that you say the words yourself, the better that it is. And then you embody how you want to be. Whatever that thing is that you want to change. Let's say I wanted to change that yearning that I had for my dad, or I wanted to change me being able to tell someone, hey, I need for you to blah blah blah, and not look at it as conflict, not look at it as being dramatic or anything, because it's more of regulating my nervous system so that I won't have that feeling of being uncomfortable. Taking that deep breath and reframing, because that's the other part, rewire and reframe of what you are, of how you see and how you say things as well. And then, and when it comes to the embodiment, is how you pretty much express it and what actions and behaviors that you are doing. So how are you changing that, whatever that is? And I want you to be able to identify something that you want to change. It's like, I'm pretty sure by listening to this, something has sparked up. Because in order for us to be like, for our divine assignment, y'all, it takes a lot of work. It's not just about, you know, like, I'm all about self-care. It's not just about me, you know, coming on here and teaching you all of these different aspects of self-care, because this is a part of self-care. Doing this kind of work about your self-concept, because it shows up personally and it shows up in your business as well. And in order for, there's different levels to this as well, because we resolve one and then there's going to be another. You're like, oh, where did this come from? And then the last one is to embrace. We talked about it before, but we talked about it from the other end, meaning the thing that we have a misconception about ourselves, of something that's interfering with our self-concept. So now we're going to reverse engineer this so that your self-concept can be better. So you're going to accept and support a new belief. You're going to accept and support a new belief, and that's how you embrace it. So you're going to embed a new belief, a new self-concept. You're going to rewire that. You're going to embed it in your subconscious, because that's the thing. Let them fight over it, but that's why you don't have to fight for it, to be honest. It's going to come in repetition. So you're going to embed it. You're going to embed the new belief, the new intention, the new self-concept that you want. You're going to embed it by rewiring it. You're going to embody it by reframing it, and then you're going to embrace it by repetition, and that's your behaviors. And remember how I was talking about your environment, your community, and your circle? This is one of the reasons why I created the Fortitude Free Circle. This is for entrepreneurs and for leaders. It's for those individuals who want to sustain your sanity, thrive under pressure, and supercharge your self-care. Because it takes work. If you think it's just about, like whatever your mission is, whatever your movement is, whatever your ministry is, it's about you. And I don't want you, this is the whole purpose of Self-Care You Academy. I don't want you to be left behind. The you, not left behind in life, left behind within yourself. Because when we don't, because by me not addressing, of course I didn't know I needed to address, because like I said, on a conscious level, I didn't have any ill feelings about my dad. It wasn't excuse me, it wasn't about having any ill feelings about him. It was about my soul. So I did not know that I was yearning for him, so that experience opened that door. That's where that click-clack came from. And when I say that, it wasn't just me now. It wasn't just me. Again, two things could be true at the same time. So what about you all? Those of you who are listening and everything. Again, we're talking about your self-concept of how you can rewire, reframe, and it's going to take repetition in order to do that. That's where the work comes in. And with the Fortitude Free Circle, we help you with that. It's an environment so that we can address some of these things that comes up that we don't normally talk about. When we're talking about, resilience, I'm about sustaining it. And to sustain it, there's so many different things that come our way, that we have to do. And we can easily leave ourselves behind. And actually, I'm gonna do a video about that as well, of how I lost myself. Because it happens so naturally, but because we have not really been taught. It's talked more about now. I'll probably say in the past 5 years. It's talked about more now. It's been talked about some, but in the past it was in like the secret society. Ooh, like what they doing over there? And it was seen kind of, like voodoo or something like that, in which a lot of things have been in existence like forever, but some kind of way in which I understand why, ended up going underground. But I don't want you to be left behind. So the circle will help you to remind you of you. And it takes practice. And the other thing is we can't do it completely by ourselves. And I've talked about before of when I've been exposed to certain communities and certain circles, and then how I discover, my superpowers, how I discover, different things about myself. But if anything, I discover the quality and the need for a community. And so we create our own. And it's good for us to be in diverse communities so that you can grow. Because because I'm going to say this and then I'll get off. And so what I've seen is, generally there are some individuals who are highly ambitious, who are business minded, and who have a good self-care concept in every means, you know, physically, mentally, who's doing the work, is all in the consciousness and eating healthy and all of that. There are some, but the majority, there's usually like the complete opposite. Even though this pencil and this pad can go together, but it's kind of like they're not, you know, in some worlds it's not crossing the street. And I've seen, you know, like some very successful individuals, and I get it, you know, especially, I'm gonna put it like this, for individuals who've started a business 10 years ago or more, because I've seen it, and it's just how it is, you know. It's kind of like, you know, you work and you hustle and you got to do this and that for your business. And I'm not saying, I'll put it like this, there's room for ease, there's room for at least not being burnout, of not having so much stress. And that's what Self-Care U Academy is all about. And it was one of the reasons that I created the Fortitude Free Circle. So for those of you who want to be a part of the circle, comment circle so that you can, you know, have some activities and some practices to help you with your self-concept. Because sometimes we need reminders. Life be lifing and things will come up, and you can sit down. I'll say you can sit down for 2 days, but don't sit down for 3 days, meaning of not doing the work. And when I say the work, it's never stopping. It's just is, y'all. That's just how it is. It's the renewing of your mind. Meditate on the word. It's the renewing of your mind and meditate on the word day and night. That's the repetition. It's almost like you reminding you of yourself every day. Because if you don't, the world will, you'll become complacent. As they say, you'll be a sheep. Yeah. But anyway, I thank you all for joining me live. Good morning, Denise. Yes, Denise Armstrong. She is so lovely. And y'all, if y'all haven't, if y'all don't, y'all make sure y'all check out her live. She comes on live I can't remember if it's every day or not, but definitely every week. And they're dynamite. They're dynamite. But Denise Armstrong said that transparency is healing, especially being taught from the heart. Yes, and it's intentional. Yes, it is, Denise. Thank you for your kind words. But yes, everyone, make sure you tune in to me for the month of August. I'm coming on live every single day. For me, I decided to come on 7-ish because it's easier for me. And that's another part of self-care, is for you to decide, I'm not going to say just easy, but what's going to work for you. And not only that, my mind flows better in the morning. At least for the month of August, it's going to be in the mornings. Oh, you're so welcome, Denise. Yeah, so again, for those of you who want to be a part of the Fortitude Free Circle, by all means, comment circle. And for those of you, especially for those of you who had been in the Facebook group, you've gotten notice in there, and so just follow the instructions with the notice so that you can become a part of the group. So you all take it easy, and I'll see y'all next time.